Hey kids, welcome to Styles Rumble animation rig time thing. Rig time? Rigging. We're rigging. We're doing some rigging. So today we're gonna set up a low budget master controller. You guys all know how excited I am at 15. I don't think that's a secret. And I've been reading a lot of the forums and stuff, and I think we can all agree that the master controller is really scary. I don't know how to use that thing. It's really scary. I'm not a programmer. I don't have any programmers on me. I've got a stuffed zebra, but I don't think that's going to be useful. So what we're going to do is play around with this old school trick. And we're going to do a low budget version. So this is good for all those old versions. You could probably do this. Well, I don't know how to use my hotkeys. I think this is good back at least to 12, probably 10. You don't need no fancy new versions for this. I'm not sure if you could do it in the stuff below premium. I'm not sure exactly what features are in the other versions, but you guys let me know if you have the features that these things work out in, and I can update the description to say if it works in 12 or 10 or whatever. Beep, 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 beep. It's not perfect, but it's easy. The tricky part is finding... Okay, let me just show you. Guess. Don't get ahead of yourself. All right, so here I have the top view, which I don't go into super often because you guys know how bitter I am about the whole 3D thing. And what you do is you take like a front view of your character. It doesn't work as well on blue. You select each piece. I'll do it for my network view. So here I'm going to grab the whole eye, and I'm going to sneak over here and grab the other eye. And I'm going to use this guy here, which is called the maintain size tool. This is really useful if you're super hooked on 3D or if you want to do some multiplaning, because what it does is as I bring it forward in the Z-axis, it compensates for that and maintains the scale on my eyes. So if you just use this guy, you translate and you pull him forward, your eyes are going to drift off into outer space, and it's going to look hideous. Here in our perspective view, you can... If you turn, you can see that I've layered the different pieces of each of these guys sort of forward. So you try and think about it how you'd want to see it. So the glasses are a little bit forward and the nose is just a little bit in front of the glasses, or maybe about the same place. Sometimes it takes a little bit of nitpicking around. Here the mouth is behind, and then the ears and the glasses are behind the head, so that when they rotate, they sort of maintain that behindedness. So it's a flat kind of rotation, but if you're going for a stylized sort of cartoon, you could get away with this flat looking rotation because you can see you can almost get some good perspective out of this little guy. The round one works a little better than blue because of course his hair is not going to rotate well. You can see there's a gap here. So you could come up with some contraption to try and layer the hair, or if you were doing a simple character and you wanted his hair to be like a series of little dots or something like this and give him a little afro, you could likely find a way to layer those so that they're coming out in a nice way visually. So once this stuff is all set up in a nice way, and it might take a little bit of tweaking, the actual rotation point of this head, when I go up and down, it's actually rotating out from a position behind the head. So you can see this is the rotation point I've chosen, but the rotation point's behind. So the way you set that up is just like you'd normally set up your pivot point. You come in here and you find your features peg, and you figure out the up, down, lefty, righty part. I wanted to rotate around here. You might want to rotate it a little lower. Your jaw, the rotating point is a little bit below your ears, so I might have put that too high. But really it's what looks nice. So I think the character's head kind of rotating within the circle head is going to be the best. And then you can use this guy in here and hold shift, and then you'll be able to just move it back and forth without it going left and right and stuff. But I mean, you can always tweak your left and right once you get it done in here. And that's how I'm getting it to get a little bit more rotation. If you move it back farther, then your head's going to rotate not quite enough. And if you put it right here on the front of the face, then your head is going to rotate too quickly. See how it just kind of smushes the face? So the trick of it is to kind of find that sweet spot, and it's going to be different for every rig. It's not something you can establish, and you want to just play with it, move it back and move it forward. If it's not moving enough, move your pivot point closer to the face. And if it's moving too much, move it farther away. So now we've got our head rotating just the way we want it with this gimbal thing. And of course, you're going to have to adjust your ears and stuff. Next, we can take that and connect it to a controller. So we could be just like those cool kids with our master controller. So hopefully that makes sense. This actual gimbal guy here, I just went into the features peg, opened up my box, and I enabled the 3D. So now I'm able to rotate using all 3 directions. One more thing that really helps, boop, 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 doop, doop, doop. The head comp I've made into a bitmap composite because you don't want, let me just, if I turn this to a pass through, then my face is going to be able to cut through. So here my nose has disappeared. I've gone a little bit farther than it's allowing, but pieces of your head are going to pass through there if you have this as a pass through. If you set it as a bitmap and then tell the leftmost to stay just ahead of your face, then you're going to be able to rotate a little bit easier. And then I've put a cutter on these features so that they stay inside the head. I just used the color art of the head, mask the features. And you can put the line art above because you can see I'm getting this over here. So I'm just going to put the line art of the head in front of these features. And then we're going to have a little bit of a fakey perspective where his eyes rotating past. The side view, like, there's definitely a limit on how far this can be pushed. And it does tween because it's being animated here. And you might need to just tweak the scale a little bit because it doesn't scale automatically. If you're good at writing expressions, you can try and find a way to do that in a fancy way. But I mean, if you're that adept, I think that the master controller is probably not going to be as scary for you, right? So the difference between this and the actual master peg is the way the master peg works is an animator will set up the default poses. So you'll say, okay, this is my up left, up left, up character right, screen left. This is my left, this is my front, this is my down right. So somebody actually sets up all those key poses, and then some Superman who knows how to program will tell the master controller, this is this thing. So when I pull my controller up, aim for that. So it's recalling those positions that you pre-animated. Like I said, I'm not a programmer, so I can't really get into the details well, but I feel like this is a fun, cheap alternative. So anybody who's feeling super brave and wants to get into the expressions of this, let's set up a little fakey controller. I do have a video on setting up expressions if you've never done it before. It's not too tricky. Expressions, they can start off very simply. It's definitely not programming. You need to know a little bit of arithmetic, but overall it's pretty accessible. So let's make a little controller. I don't have my find and replace script yet. I am using Harmony 15 right now, just the trial version. I don't have the real version as of yet, but you can do this in anything for this. I just don't have any of my hotkeys or anything set up, so maybe I should have just stuck to 14. Color. Everything's just in a slightly different place because I haven't set it up yet. So let's just set up a little bloop. And you can put it right over the face if you want. I'm just going to put it off to the side so it's a little bit easier to see. Set up my pivot point. And now we're going to do a little bit of a weird thing. First thing we do is we set a keyframe on our controller, F6, and then we have to come over here to where the name is, controller peg, and we right click, and then this little option here shows up called share functions, and we're going to hit that. Initially it doesn't seem to do anything. It won't show up over here. It won't show up. So it's hiding in here. Now we click on this and it's going to bring us to this big chunk of things. So normally here we just have like the blue leg box. It's just one column, but by sharing the functions like we did, now all of our functions are separated here into their own columns. This is going to give us a little bit of flexibility of what we can do with them. And we're able to use some of the advanced features in here, this little box. This has a drop-down menu, which a lot of people are scared of. And we're able to grab expressions here, or we're able to grab curves. So now you can see that our controller curves are all available in here to use and connect things. So if we needed this to go up and down, say we were just wanted to connect our translate, we could just go in here to the features and then connect our x-axis, y-axis directly to that by grabbing this Bezier curve. Go to the controller. Now all of our things here are available for grabbing. So we could connect the X to the X, the Y to the Y, Z directly. But what we want is to connect this rotation to the translation of this, because I want this to go up and then the head to go up like this. That's my end goal, because I don't want to rotate this gimbal-y thing. I find it really annoying to click this little dealy and then it's right over the face, and sometimes you accidentally translate. So what I want to do is just have this uppy downy thing. So there's going to be a little bit of math involved because we want to decide how far up, down, left, and right is. So 0 is what I want my center to be. That's sensible. If it goes up, I want it to go this far, and then I can see about 2 north. So even if I just put 2, I think that's great. That's how far I want it to be when it reaches the top part. And now I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to say, when this reaches here, I want my head to look like this. So let's take a look at the rotation here. So we have an x of minus 44. Let's put our math over here. When this is plus 2, I want it to equal minus 44. So we're going to create a little expression for that, all right? So we're going to say that the controller, and to find the number, we divide 44 by 2. So the controller y value times negative 22 equals the rotation value of this guy. So let's look at what that one is. The x-axis, that's what we want, equals the x rotation. So hopefully this makes sense. If you're not logical minded, then figuring these values out might seem a little bit like just too much. Like, why? But I mean, you could just use the gimbal. It's perfectly usable without doing any of this expression stuff if you don't feel like it. But I feel like it. Let's do that. Okay, so what we need to do is create a new column down here, add column, and we're going to make an expression column. All right, we're going to call this face up. So this is the up down. We can call it face up down, whatever you need to remind yourself what it is, and we'll add it. And I'm also going to make a face over because I'm going to need that later. Expressions tend to just go all the way to the end here of your columns. If you just select the controller, it'll pop over to the controller pieces. So they're right here. That's kind of convenient. There's no way to click on an expression, but conveniently, they just kind of end up over on the far right to begin with until you connect them to something. So I can grab my face up, double click, and it's going to give us an expression box that we can type all sorts. I just managed to shut off my Camtasia while I was like, oh, I'm so smart. Look at me typing my expressions. So there's a little bit of language you need to know to figure out the expressions, which I talk about more in my handles and expressions video. It's number 9 in the rigging series. But what we need to do is just create a little math equation that says controller. I was just pointing to my Cintiq, like you can see my finger. So controller y times minus 22 is the value we want. So what we're going to put in, this guy here, the controller's y. So we're going to find out exactly what that's called here. We can double click it, and then we can just copy it and paste it in here. Let me open up a word pad here so we can put it in a nice big font. So we have to be able to write this in a language that our Dealy's going to understand. So what we write is the value of this guy. So this is telling our little expression column to go find this column that we just, because we've separated it out, this column now exists, and it's able to go check out what that number is. Then we're going to multiply it using our little star by negative 22. So that means when it goes up, it's going to give us a value like multiplied by minus 22 because we want it to be minus 44 by the time it hits 2. That's what we figured out when we did all this gobbledygook here. So I'm going to copy this, and that's all you need is that there. So it's just a little math equation that's going to translate one number into another number. Now we can come into our features peg, and we're going to hook that expression up. So we wanted it to be our x uppy downy rotation. That's down here. Now we don't have a drop down menu for this because it's got this quarter none. I don't know what that means, but if we pop over here, then these guys are going to be separate, and we're going to get drop-down menus for that. So that's going to give us that little dealy we need. We're going to grab our expression we just made called face up. We're going to connect it. So now we move this up, and our dealy moves up. Now, the one issue is it's not in real time, so you have to like move and boop it. If you move it over, it's not hooked up yet, so that's not going to do anything. Boop, 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 boop. But you can see now just by moving this up and down, we're getting it to move. There is a way to make this real time if you know more about programming, but I don't. If you know more about scripting, you can get this stuff to do crazy stuff, but that's just not a thing I can do. So the next thing we want to do, we're update our new expression for the face over. Boop, boop. And we can try this again. We're going to just switch this to the X value, make sure it's written properly. And we'll see if this works directly. So now it's the X value instead multiplied by 22. We're going to say okay, save that. And now on our Y value here, we're going to connect our new expression. You can see our old expression is kind of hiding in here because it's connected, but you can use it again. We're going to use our face over, and we'll see if that works. So what is happening is it's going left and it's going right. That's because of the negative in there. So now that these are connected, they kind of hide in the middle of your X sheet. Because they're blue, you can scroll and find them. You can also, if these guys are hooked up already, we can use this little squiggly maboober and that'll pop up our expression. So we don't have to go find it, which is nice because I'm lazy. I don't want to go find anything. So all I'm going to do is just take out this negative, apply, and now our right is going right. And we can use our low budget controller. Whee! All of our other stuff is going to work just like you'd expect it to. So any little tweaks you need to do to get this guy working, you can go in and it'll set all the keys and stuff. You don't set your keys anymore on this gimbal thing, and you can't actually control it anymore. It's all controlled by this guy here. But this guy's keyframeable thing. We can grab this guy and put him anywhere we want inside of our dealy, and you can have it follow along with the head or the features peg. So when you're setting up, your guy's going to follow along. And then the last thing you're going to want to do with a controller is just like any controller, you're going to put a visibility node, and we're not going to render it. I'm going to need a color card because it's black. Now it's not going to show up in here. So hopefully that math bit makes sense. You just want to figure out, because if you leave this 1 to 1, then if this moves up 1, which is about that far, this is only going to move 1 degree in rotation. So you need to multiply it by something that's large enough that it's actually going to, because otherwise you're going to have to move it up 22 fields to get it to rotate it all. And that's why we put in our little expression. Whee! Our ears need managing. But now all this is keyframeable. These two guys now are sharing a composite, a bitmap. I'm going to switch this to a pass-through. That's why I was getting some weird ear stuff happening. There are going to be some little bits where the ears sort of find that mid-ground between front and back, just because they are kind of being cut on a thing. But you can just pull it forward and push it back using keyframing like you normally would. But overall, I think it's got a fun little look to it. It could definitely be a fun style to work in. You do have to have a little bit of patience putting this stuff in. The master controller can handle these squashes and stretches because it's pre-programmed in, but I don't know how to do that. Most of us don't. So we get by with this. You can put in more handles if you want to have like this entire eye part have a handle that controls that squash and stretch. I'm sure you could, even if you figured out the math, you could figure out how to write in some simple scripts for that. Like if this goes beyond 42 degrees, it squashes by this much, or simple if statements and stuff can all go in the X sheet. So if you are someone that's a little bit more familiar with scripting, you can come up with some little things to do in there. This is about as far as I get, but I've worked with people who have more of a background in scripting, and they'll do some of these if statements. All of those can go in your expression column if that's something you're comfortable doing. If not, even if this is just too much, just don't put a controller in there. Just use the gimbal. That works fine. I mean, yeah, use what you can got. You can just hook your gimbal up directly to something. If you just want something to rotate over here instead of in the middle of the face so it's not blocking anything, that's doable too. Lots of little things you can do that aren't as fancy as the big new master controller, but they're kind of fun anyway. Pretty sure Advance has the ability to do 3D rotations, which is all I'm doing here. I'm just kind of flattening it out, and then you can just go in and tweak your guys a little bit. I think I would want a little controller just for those things, just so I can tweak it a little bit more. All right, so here we go. I've just keyframed a few out. I didn't do much squash and stretch on the face, just so you could see what it looks like just by moving this controller around and just tweaking the ears a little bit. There are going to be places where you have to work on where these cut through. You're just going to have to pull them forward and back using your keyframes, but that's not a huge deal. So let me know if you're using something below the premium level, if you have access to this enable 3D button. I'm not sure if the basic one does. I feel like the advanced one should have that. Don't know. But hopefully you have a good time playing with this little thing. If you use it, let me know. Let me see what you're doing, because I'm always interested in what you guys are up to. I'm gonna go, because I've been at this for like a million years, because I didn't plan. So now I have to edit a lot. But like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do, and I will see you in the next episode.